Benvenuti a tutti nel salotto dell'Opinionista News e un caloroso benvenuto all'International Corporate Artist Arvedo Arvedi.
Buongiorno a tutti quanti, carissimi amici. Oggi è un giorno particolarmente speciale per me, perché ho con me oggi come ospite il mio maestro americano John David Mooney. E per me è un grande orgoglio e gioia perché con lui ho diviso momenti particolari, nel senso che ho fatto con lui cose meravigliose. Abbiamo illuminato a grattacieli e cose spettacolari. John David è un artista di Chicago, ma è un artista internazionale. Ha girato tutto il mondo e oggi abbiamo l'onore di averlo qui e abbiamo l'onore di ascoltare dalle sue parole la sua filosofia, il suo modo di essere e il perché fa queste cose eccezionali. Hi John David.
Hi John David, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Great to meet you, Sabrina and Arvedo.
Piacere di conoscerti, John David. Allora, diciamo ai nostri amici che ci stanno seguendo che John David è in collegamento da Chicago. Lui comprende l'italiano, per cui noi faremo le domande in italiano, John David. Lui ci risponderà in inglese, ma don't you worry perché ci sono i sottotitoli mentre John David parla. And now we start.
Good. I think that you're interested in why I make light sculptures and why that is such a major part of my life. And that is key to my work, mainly because all art is about light. And most particularly the art that we go back to, the Byzantines in Western art, how they were able to, with gold mosaics, make the sky become an entirely light-infused space. And then we move on to the late Trecento, early Quattrocento, when we have Cimabue not working with mosaics, but working with paint. And the gold behind that, and then the Giotto, Leo de Santi, Madonna, both of these paintings in the Uffizi show, again, that light, but with paint, not with mosaics. And then light just it becomes the study all the way through art. Raffaello made the entire atmosphere light. So in the school of Athens, for example, everything is just bathed in this heavenly light. But then there can be drama. Caravaggio comes in with a single candle and is able to put drama and emotion within a space. And so then through the history of art, as we all are embedded in this art, we come to different great moments when huge steps are made, a step moving forward and forward. And the Impressionists were such a group. The Impressionist paintings dealt with light and as it scattered, as light scatters and hits all the different surfaces and reflected back. And at the same time that they were painting, the scientists were discovering light in completely new ways. And so there is this symbiotic relationship between science and art. Röntgen, Crookes, Faraday, all of them were working with the light that is in our atmosphere, the light which we just capture to no end. And so when I was commissioned to do two major sculptures. The first major commission for a sculpture, I was teaching at the University of Notre Dame, and they wanted these for the School of Architecture's lobby. And I decided that why don't I use the light that we're using all the time in our environment? And in our environment, we have the simple light bulb, we have fluorescent lights, we have just simple things that we're using all the time and not conscious of it. And I wanted to make that an integral part of the sculpture. Now, of course, all sculpture is defined by light, by sunlight, by light and shade defines a piece in space. But here, let the light come into these pieces. So Snoopy is an early piece with many little lights of different types, long pieces, and then some short round globe-like lights, all integral to this piece. Another one was light sandwich, and then cloud. So these three pieces of mine were able to make light integral to the surface. So that was a big leap, not making it separate, not being defined by the sun, which of course all things are, but having it integral. And I'm still teaching, working with these, and then teaching in the university. I had access to the high energy physics laboratories, to the radiation laboratories, and I started working in those spaces myself, and began to work with rarefied gases, excited rarefied gases in a vacuum. So long enclosures of glass vessels filled with different gases, and then excited and could see these striations of light as they slowly move across the space. Now these were captured light, a little bit different than the source of integral sculpture. Here I'm capturing the light, and these became glass vessels, some 12 feet high, taking an entire gallery space or museum space. Fragile because they're glass, but sturdy in that they were moved from museum to museum. So these are great experiments that I made, and then realized all this stuff is still within the confines of private spaces. I want to go into public space. So then the work began to do interventions into the landscape, into the urban scape. I was also doing research in General Motors light division, where they made all the headlights for the automobiles, called guide division. And I was the artist in residence of General Motors in this division. And I had all these lights to be able to work with, and the optics of that light, how to project that light into different directions. And not far away, another commission came to do a piece at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. And this beautiful museum sits on a grounds that's quite huge with a lake. And the Olmsted, Frederick Law Olmsted and his firm laid out this space. And in walking the space and discovering it, I began to see that he actually laid the landscape out for light. He laid this space out for the shadows that would happen with his plantings on the summer solstice. And I'm doing this piece right at the summer solstice. So I make a mile-long sculpture, a mile long. It was called the Indianapolis Mile. And to make it a mile, I had to go over a lake. So that's the first huge piece. And to do that, I had to be in helicopters, uh, 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 directing and photographing the piece from above. So, but again, it was a landscape space. I wanted to do more uh, urban interventions, and luckily, I got a commission from the Museum of Contemporary Art to
Excuse
do.
me, John David, just
Yeah,
a second, please. Arvedo, quello che noi stiamo sentendo qua è la nascita di un grande artista
Sì.
che tu hai avuto la fortuna di conoscere, ma non solo, hai collaborato con lui a numerosi progetti statunitensi, vero?
Sì, devo dire francamente, io ho avuto l'onore e la grande fortuna di lavorare in diversi progetti. Il nostro incontro è stato assolutamente fortuito con John David perché io facevo un lavoro completamente diverso. Io lavoravo, la mia famiglia ha una villa e di conseguenza io lavoravo in ambito turistico. Ho incontrato John David durante una cena dell'Enit e John David mi ha invitato nel suo studio e con lui ho iniziato a collaborare assolutamente per caso. Ho iniziato facendo delle fotocopie di un book che stava preparando per un progetto per la Scozia, Water Wings. Do you remember John David? Water
yes, I
Wings.
do. I sure
Uh,
do. That was wonderful.
yes, our
Really enjoyed that.
I, my first project. Sto ridendo perché ho semplicemente in questo progetto ho semplicemente fatto le fotocopie diciamo, dei book, dei libri, dei progetti, perché per una serie di circostanze l'assistente John David ha dovuto andare via, purtroppo era morto suo padre, è dovuto andare via velocemente e ho aiutato John David a completare il progetto da spedire in Scozia. Quello è stato il mio primo progetto con John David. Poi ne ho avuti altri meravigliosi, tipo Atlanta, i Giochi Olimpici di Atlanta, Stardance, do you remember John David Stardance? E poi Light Muse per lo Chicago Tribune e poi Gateway for Third Millennium a Malta. Questi sono i progetti più importanti di illuminazione.
Very major
Eh,
piece.
yes, major piece. Eh, ed è stato un momento eccezionale, però ribadisco, parliamo di John David che in questo momento è lui il protagonista. Io sono un felice assistente del suo lavoro.
Okay, John David, for the Contemporary Art Museum, what happened? Cos'è successo?
Well, they they expected me to make a show which would be in one of the galleries. They'd been closed for 2 years to put this big addition onto the museum. And since I had just done this mile-long piece, I thought maybe I could do a piece in the city. And in those days, this city was quite cooperative to me. I had earlier worked along an 8-mile section of the shoreline of Chicago, and I did a light piece which was 8 miles high and 8 miles long, uh, called called Light Space 77, using searchlights, a common thing that I found in the environment. Keeping that principle of doing a landscape or urbanscape pieces, I want to use the material that's already there. Be conscious of that material. And I realized that the street that I wanted to work on in front of the museum, of course, was illuminated by automobile headlights. And how nice that I had just been working in General Motors light and headlight division, doing research as an artist. So with 9 miles of wire, I created this piece that took the sidewalks of both sides of the street and the street close the street for 2 weeks. This is the major east-west artery in Chicago called Ontario Street. And I thought all the merchants would be furious with me, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So there was no problem. And so I did this carpet of light, basically, on the street, which was so wired that I had a score and all the sections of this piece changed in light and time. So this becomes a very much of an important part of my work, that there be time sequences so that you're working with the fourth dimension as well as you are with light. And so it's like a musical score. So that was a major work which prefaced a lot of other pieces that follow.
Perché una delle caratteristiche dei lavori di John David, che lavora con la luce, è quella di cambiare l'atmosfera dell'ambiente che c'è intorno. Perciò un palazzo illuminato non è solo un palazzo illuminato, cambia la colorazione di tutto quanto, tutto ciò che è intorno.
Verissimo.
So from that piece at the Museum of Contemporary Art, the United States asked me to represent all of the land artists, earth artists, light artists in this country, and to show that they were putting together in Zagreb, Yugoslavia. So there I was able to work with Buckminster Fuller, who designed the geodesic dome. And then outside that dome, after people were viewing an exhibition of painters and paintings, they would come out and do another quarter-mile long sculpture, 4 football fields. So from the streetscape, I was able to expand back out again and did this major streetscape. And again, the framing of that street was by automobile headlights on 2 sides, parallel. So that created the frame, and inside I was able to create these standing lines, very much like prehistoric standing stones, but in light. And it's called Zagreb light lines because they're projecting light. There was a drawing being made at all times on the surface of light. And time, yes, all the pieces were so programmed to fade and cross over each other. So you had this kinetic drawing of light lines on the ground plane, as well as the 3-dimensional pieces of the sculptures, of the light sculptures themselves. So that becomes a major a piece outside of the country. And so that in itself is a huge thing when you're driving your material with big trucks into the cargo airplanes themselves and filling the cargo plane with all the material and moving in that direction. So that was fun. And you know, you again, this is the material that I had, what I was able to use there. And coming back to America, I got, again, a pretty important commission, but this time in Los Angeles. And it was to be in a building. And I didn't know, the commission said, just do what you want for me. The President of the United States at the time, Ronald Reagan, is going to be coming his first trip out of the White House to Los Angeles to an event that I'm having in this building. Make a sculpture that's proper. And so I went out to visit the building, and it was, you know, a ticky-tack box, like everything in Los Angeles was at the time, just ticky-tack boxes, little white boxes with flat roofs. And I realized that there was no public art, that everybody lived in automobiles going 55 miles an hour, and that this man had already commissioned one major piece by Henry Moore, and he wanted me to put possibly the piece next to the Moore in this little courtyard which nobody ever sees. So I decided not to do that, but to take something which everybody sees and put it on top of the roof. This became the first of a series of rooftop sculptures. And the piece is called Star Steps, pure Hollywood. It climbs up, but I had orientated it to the light of the Milky Way. So that orientation of the Milky Way is like reflecting down. And within the piece, I'd gone back to an earlier use of searchlights, which I used in Chicago. And this time I took xenon beams, and they go right through the sculpture, and they extend the sculpture up over to Hollywood Hills. It was pure Hollywood. And so it also became Star Steps, the largest piece in North America, 135 feet long, 35 feet high.
John David, Arvedo, it's too late. It's too late, ma abbiamo un'altra puntata con John David, vero Arvedo? Arvedo, non ti sentiamo, accendi il microfono. Start.
Okay. We are coming back from LA, and we are going in Australia, the next step.
The next
And
step, yes, the next time. E allora noi salutiamo i nostri spettatori e gli diamo ovviamente appuntamento a giovedì prossimo con Arte in Salotto, con Arvedo Arvedi e
John David Mooney.
David Mooney da Chicago.
Ok?
Allora salutiamo tutti. Ore 18 in salotto.
All right.
Qui.
Ok.
Ciao.
Ciao ciao.
Bye.
Bye bye.